On Netflix, I watch, and you guys are going to thank me for this, the guy, I was about to say The Godfather, Goodfellas from 1990. Is it better than The Godfather? Because this was pretty damn good. Now, I haven't seen The Godfather, but I think they have 1, 2, and 3 up on Netflix, and I'll likely watch them soon enough for you. But, yeah, for 1990, directed by Martin Scorsese, based on the book Wiseguy, about a true story of this guy, Henry Hill, an Irish guy who was kind of had ties to Italian mafia, and I had to go into witness protection. You know, I kind of spoiled some shit. There's going to be a lot of spoilers here. Anyways, you've probably seen this movie already, and that might be why you're watching it, trying to get my opinion. This movie does a lot of good things in the way of direction. And I think there's a lot of layers here that people aren't necessarily seeing that maybe have been discussed in other places. So Ray Liotta plays this guy, Henry, and ever since he can remember, he wanted to be in the mafia. There were wise guys on his street. They got to be cool. They had all the power in town. He wanted to be like them. So he does chores for him as a kid. Comes across this guy who's they said to be 28 years old, Jimmy, played by Robert De Niro. Why did I say that? So, Robert De Niro has him going around doing some little gangster type stuff. Introduces him to this guy who appears to be a little bit older. His name's Tommy. And it's a little odd right there because Tommy, as we see later in the film, is played by Joe Pesci. And as he's about the age of Robert De Niro, how come they're not just both playing themselves in the past, or maybe both younger selves? At least the guy that got to get Ray Liotta part, he looked the part, I guess. He looked like Ray Liotta in some way. You could see him as young Ray Liotta. Well, we have him doing various little things for the mafia, smuggling stuff, parking guys' cars, whatever. Steals some things, gets caught, gets pinched, as they say, and they use their mob lawyers to get him out of jail. And they have a celebration. You know, you passed. You're a real man now. There's this guy, Paul Sorvino. He's like the Italian connection for them. They have to pay him a little bit to keep the Italian mob off their back when they do stuff. He's the protection. And you get a good insight into how organized crime works. Or at least had, you know, in the earlier part of the 20th century. Well, the mid part of it, whatever. So, as we advance in there, he goes on a bad date, and I think now he's played by Ray Liotta, goes on a bad date with Lorraine Bracco. And you're going to see quite a few people who end up in The Sopranos. I feel like what they did with this movie was they said, hey, you're in Goodfellas? Well, we're making an Italian crime show on HBO called The Sopranos. Can we just get some people who were in stuff? How about Goodfellas? How about these three? Whatever. That's kind of what they did. There's a lot of people you're going to see in the movie. You may not catch their names real well. Or what happened to them, or how things happened to them. He goes on this date with Lorraine Bracco. It doesn't go so well. But then she gets angry at him for not going on the second date where he stood her up. But then they kind of like that, and it's feisty, and kind of sort of fall in love. They have a wedding. They're getting all this money from the crime families. You know, it's like, hey, a little something to get you guys started, you know. And she's like, oh, this is kind of weird. But she gets to be kind of an accomplice in this. At first, she doesn't much like it. Doesn't like how he's cheating on her. But she kind of puts up with it. You know, not really a good message there. But anyhow, as the movie continues, the style and the songs change. We have some 50s. We have a lot of the Crystals. I'm trying to remember which ones they sing in this movie, but it doesn't matter so much. But you know, the point is, this way the scenes are structured, it's not traditional. I think that Scorsese does this a lot. You can see this in that cop movie he did with Matt Damon and DiCaprio, and you know. It was based on a Japanese movie. Anyway, but the point is, these scenes don't play out in a traditional way. There's a lot of narration leading you through the scene. And the scenes are so quick and short, but really well put together. There's a lot of sweeping camera angles, everything touches on something else, a lot of steady cam shots. And you also start to learn that the narrator is not reliable. You have to question if Henry Hill's telling the truth here to protect himself. See, this guy Tommy, played by Joe Pesci, psychopath. He'll murder somebody for just saying something kind of mean. There's this good scene where it looks like he's going to turn on Henry. He's like, "Oh, you're a funny guy, Tommy. Huh? Funny? How am I funny, huh? No, you tell me. How am I funny? Like I'm a clown? Do I amuse you?" Like, everybody loves that scene. I can see why they do it. It's a very good scene. And it turns out he's just busting his balls. Or is he? Well, I mean, they'll put guys down. There was this guy, Maury. Sells like mattresses, I think. Or was it wigs? He had a wig. I think maybe he sells wigs. Oh, there's kids over there. I'm not talking about Goodfellas around kids. They whack him, even though Robert De Niro had told Ray Liotta, "Hey, don't worry about Maury. It's cool." Boom. As soon as he questioned about some money, he's gone. There was this big heist. They stole like millions of dollars from the airport, but we never see it go down. We heard brief talk about it, how they brought in all these guys, and now they're all getting whacked. So you really get the impression that Robert De Niro's character, Jimmy, wants to hold on to the money. He doesn't want anybody else finding out about it. And all these guys are talking. They all want their cut, get rid of them, more for him, right? Well, you start to end up to where it's just Henry and Tommy left, really. Well, Tommy's he's got Italian blood. He's going to get inducted into the real mafia. They called it being made. Well, earlier he flipped out on a guy, this guy Bats, killed him, buried him, and they're getting revenge. They kill him. And that's a point where Henry's like, "I've got to get out of this." So as he's meeting with Jimmy afterwards, he always feels like Jimmy's going to have him whacked. Meets him in a public diner. His wife sees Jimmy, gets a little freaked out when he gives her some directions, cut through down some alley. And it's done in this way how they don't necessarily want to tip off and start fighting him. And there's also this shot where they're meeting in the diner, and you'll notice the cars in the background are zooming in, although the action in the foreground is staying the same. And that's kind of to show you that Henry is waking up. He's seeing the new reality. He understands the revelation that has occurred here. And you know, you even have scenes where it's like, now Tommy's the narrator. So like with the narration bouncing around, was Lorraine Bracco the narrator at one time, his wife? Found out he's cheating on her and stuff. The narration bounces around in a way, it's not omniscient. We don't know what the real truth is here. I mean, Henry makes himself out to be so innocent here. He didn't kill anybody, he roughs people up, and is around when other guys kill people, and he just helps find the body. You know, "Hey, we buried it over here, I'll tell you where it is." And that's his part. I guess he gets witness protection with Lorraine Bracco, right? And so, yeah, he spills the beans. Jimmy and Paul Sorvino, Robert De Niro and Paul Sorvino's character get brought in. They get sentenced to prison. They're going away for longer than they did earlier in the movie, where they had easy prison breaks. And Henry Hill is somewhere living life anonymously, though his wife and him separated. You hear some decent music throughout the movie, and I want to point out that at one point Henry's even going crazy. Well, he's so worried about helicopters doing surveillance, and he's got a coke problem, and he's multitasking. He's picking people up from the airport. He has to cook some food, but you gotta do the perfect. But I gotta watch that helicopter. And, you know, that helicopter. You know, they're listening. Don't say stuff on the phone. And people were listening on the phone, but maybe not necessarily the helicopter. But there's a song that's playing. I had to look it up, and it was called "What Is Life." I think it's "What Is Life" by George Harrison. I know I've heard it before. Here's the thing I've learned watching this movie, if anything else. The only member of the Beatles with any discernible music talent was George Harrison. Because whenever I come across a song, it's like, oh shit, that's a George Harrison after the Beatles song? How come everybody else's after Beatles stuff sucks? So there you go. Goodfellas. Liked it a lot. George Harrison, the only decent Beatle. 3.5 out of 4 stars.